Every laundromat has one employee who lasts longer than the rest, and at the Lucky Fold on Route 9, outside Piney Ridge, Oregon, that used to be me, right up until I found the notebook that made me understand the strange rules my manager never fully explained. His name was Walter Doyle, and he ran that place for 31 years without raising his voice above a mumble. He wiped down Machine 4 every night whether it needed it or not. He smoked exactly half a cigarette on the back step and pocketed the rest for tomorrow, every single night, like the second half belonged to somebody else. Not a nervous habit, not a superstition, not something you shrug off after the first week. I shrugged it off for 3 months anyway, because that's what you do when a paycheck is steady and the man signing it is decent to you. He got sick that spring and didn't come back. His daughter handed me a ring of keys on a Tuesday and told me the overnight shift was mine if I wanted it. Underneath the keys, at the bottom of the box, sat a spiral notebook with a rubber band wrapped twice around it. No label, no date, just his handwriting, cramped and slanted, filling every page front and back. I didn't open it that first night. I told myself I would read it when I had time. I read it at 2 in the morning. Alone, because Machine 7 was running with nothing plugged into the wall, and I needed an explanation that wasn't going to arrive on its own. The notebook wasn't organized into rules the way I expected. There was no list, no numbers down the side of a page, just entries, scrawled whenever something happened, dated only by the season he mentioned in passing. Some entries were 4 lines. Some were half a page, crossed out and rewritten like he couldn't get the wording right the first time. Reading it felt less like following instructions and more like listening to a man argue with himself about which strange rules he was even allowed to believe. The first entry I landed on described a woman in a gray raincoat who came in on nights when the sky was clear, paid for a single wash, and stood in front of Machine 7 without ever loading it. Walter had written in shaky letters that he'd learned not to ask what she was washing. I closed the notebook after that one. I didn't open it again for a week. That was the last easy week I had at that laundromat. The woman came in on a Thursday, 9 days after Walter's funeral, wearing a raincoat the color of wet concrete, though the sky outside hadn't produced a drop of rain in 11 days. I remembered the entry before I remembered to be afraid. She walked straight to Machine 7, set nothing inside it, and stood facing the glass door of the drum like she was waiting for a face to appear in it. I didn't approach her. I didn't ask if she needed change. I just watched the machine begin to turn on its own, slow and uneven, the way something turns when it's carrying more weight than it should. She stayed until it stopped. Then she left without ever touching the door. I told myself that was the strangest thing I'd see that month. I was wrong within 2 weeks. Another entry, further back, described the vending machine in the corner lighting up after 3 in the morning and dispensing item after item to an empty room. Walter wrote that he used to collect the candy bars until his hands started shaking every time he touched one. And after that, he just let the tray fill and cleared it out at dawn without looking too closely. I thought that entry was the exaggeration of a tired old man until the tray filled itself in front of me, 23 items deep, and I found half of them empty on the inside, wrapper intact, nothing where the chocolate should have been. I stopped eating anything from that vending machine. I stopped restocking it too closely to midnight. The part I have never told anyone comes from the same week, and it still doesn't sit right in my chest when I think about it. A regular named Arlene Pruitt used to come in every Sunday with the same green laundry bag, and she always left a folded 20 on the counter, even though her total never came close to that much. One Sunday she didn't show. The following Sunday, someone who looked exactly like her, down to the same chipped nail polish, walked in with the same green bag and paid with the same folded 20, except she called me by a name that wasn't mine, one I'd never told anyone, a name my mother used to call me when I was small, enough to still be carried. I checked the notebook that night, with my hands not quite steady. Walter had written about a woman who repeated names back to people, names she had no way of knowing, and he'd underlined one sentence twice. If she uses a name you haven't heard in years, do not correct her, and do not come back the next Sunday to see if she remembers you too. I didn't correct her. I also didn't come back the next Sunday, not until I forced myself. 3 weeks later, on a night I'd convinced myself would be ordinary. It wasn't. The green bag was already on the folding table when I unlocked the door that morning, sitting there before I ever opened the building, folded neatly, empty, with the same chip of green nail polish resting on top of it, like it had been left there on purpose. Understanding the strange rules Walter had lived by for 30 years didn't come from a single dramatic night. It came slowly, entry by entry, the way frost creeps across a window. Somewhere in the middle of that notebook, he'd written the closest thing to an explanation I ever found. He said the building had stood on ground that was strange long before anyone paved a road over it, and whatever used to walk there at night hadn't stopped just because somebody built a laundromat on top of it. The customers who didn't quite make sense were only borrowing the routine because it was the closest thing to normal they had left, and the kindest thing you could do was let them keep it. I have read that page more times than I can count, and I still don't fully understand it. The building looks ordinary in the daylight. Fluorescent lights, cracked vinyl chairs, a bulletin board covered in flyers for guitar lessons and lost cats. If you walked in around noon, you would never guess that anything about it required a warning written in a dead man's handwriting. I still work the overnight shift. I still keep the notebook in the same rusted toolbox under the folding table, rubber band wrapped twice around it. And some nights I add a line of my own when something happens that Walter never got the chance to write down. I haven't figured out who is supposed to inherit it after me. I haven't figured out where Arlene Pruitt actually is, either, or whether the woman with the green bag was ever really her at all. This is a great fake test so that we can get rid of the issue. Some nights, closer to 3 than not, I hear the coin slots on machine 7 click open on their own, one at a time, slow, like something on the other side is still deciding whether tonight is the night it finally steps all the way through.